So here we are once again with Abzan Elves. Nothing has changed regarding the sideboard or the main board for the deck. The last time I posted a video, I was trying Necromantia, and it's actually the card that I thought had the most potential. I just had to adjust my mana base a little bit, and that's what I did. As I've mentioned before, I removed the Horizon Canopy in order to add a second Nurturing Peatland. And I removed one forest in order to add a second Overgrown Tomb. This gives me better access to black mana, and I hope that I will be able to cast the card that I want to test as much as possible. So here is a league fully dedicated to this card and to the deck, of course, and let's see how it goes. Let's go to match number 1. So here we are, match number 1, unknown opponent. We are playing first. This hand is not a good hand to keep. It has a Dryad Arbor in hand, which is not a good thing to have. You prefer to draw it, to fetch for it. We have no 1-drops. Our only 2-drop is a Scavenging Ooze, which is not going to do anything on its own, especially against an unknown deck. We don't know if it's going to be good or not. Finale of Devastation, it doesn't bring anything to the deck as it is. It doesn't combine any of the pieces of the decks of the puzzle, let's say. So I decide to mulligan. So this is our mulligan to 6. Again, I draw the Dryad Arbor, a card that I do not want to have in my hand. It seems to be sticking lately to my hand, but it's okay. And I have a Zuri, Archdruid, and 2 companies. It's a bit heavy. It's a plus 3 mana plus the hand, but I did decide to keep it because I didn't want to go down to 5. I'm going to bottom Missouri, as it's the card that does the least as it is. I do recognize that Azuri plus Archdruid is a finisher, but I do believe that 2 collected companies are going to get me something better out of it, and I do not want to bottom the Dryad Arbor, which could possibly be used. So, turn 1, we're going to play our Overgrown Tomb, Llanowar Elves, and we're passing the turn. So the opponent's playing red. Not happy. We draw a second mana dog. At this point, we do play the Dryad Arbor, as we have no other play. And we see Ragavan. It's second bolt. It doesn't go that well for us. So we have another option. We continue playing our hand out, so which means that Warmaster gets on the battlefield, and we still have 2 collected companies and an Elvish Archdruid. And this is actually the reason why I said at the beginning of this video that this was not a very good hand. Against a high removal deck, there was a high chance we wouldn't be able to cast many of the things that we had. So they're gonna Snapcaster, they're gonna bolt our Warmaster, and they're gonna attack. And we're still stuck into 2 lands. At least at this point we do draw the Everted Catacombs, and we're able to play the Archdruid. They do have 3 cards in hand. If the Archdruid survives, we're not in a bad spot. Obviously, I'm not going to block the Ragavan, even though I do adore blocking this card. But I do need the mana in order to cast my collected companies. The Voided Druid. Since they're passing the turn with mana open, I'm pretty sure they have counters, and I start to realize, actually I realized ages ago, that the game is almost over. But I do have to try until the end. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to wait for the end of their turn to try to cast my collected company. Hopefully they will counter it, and on my turn I will be able to play another one. Attack. They got a land out of it. End of the turn I'm gonna try to cast collected company. Spell Pierce, they're countering it. I cannot pay for 2 mana. That's another good draw, but at this point I did have to go. I tried to go actually for the Court of Calling to get a Curious Ranger in order to untap and do the rest. But because they countered me, I just considered the match and I went to the game and I went to the second one. So let's see how we sideboard. So, how do we sideboard against Izzet decks? As I said before, we do use Leyline of Vitality. We do want our Grists, because I am expecting to see Murktide. Obviously the 3 Endurances. These are the cards that we bring in. Leyline of Vitality gives us a +1 in the toughness of the creature, making any Furies or any mass removals like Kozilek's Return that we've seen in the past less useful. Also, it helps us gain some life and win some time against them in order to be able to stabilize the board. The Grist obviously is another great card which can target their creatures. They do not play that many creatures. Usually they play Murktide, Channeler, Dragon Rage Channeler, as well as Ragavan. We did see some Snapcasters, but they do not worry us at all. So Grists come in. First target, obviously, Murktide. Endurance is a great card. It's our elemental that we can pitch in order to clean their graveyard. So what comes out? Chords and Finales. As they do play lots of counters, I do believe that it's a poor choice. I am moving away from the combo. So Vizier comes out. Devoted Druid comes out. One Heritage Druid comes out. Usually I go for another Azuri. This time though I did go for the second Devoted Druid and I went down to 2. I liked playing with 61 cards post sideboarding. So let's see how it goes. So game number 2, we're playing first. This hand has only a Leyline of Vitality as well as an Endurance. Usually it's a hand that I will not keep, but because we're playing against a deck that has a lot of removal, I do not mind keeping this hand. It has a Nurturing Peatland in case I need to draw, and it has 2 fetch lands that will help me thin the deck a little bit. So turn 1 we're playing our Leyline of Vitality as well as a fetch land in order to thin the deck. I always keep in mind that they do like playing Blood Moon, so as I do not know if I want to fetch or not, I haven't fetched anything yet. And I'm playing according to how my opponent is playing. I'm not fetching aggressively, and you'll see how it goes. This is our top deck, which is not gonna matter because we're gonna shuffle our deck back with the fetch lands. And they're attacking us with Ragavan, and they get our Scavenging Ooze. This is a card that I didn't want them to get. I can't do anything about it though. I do see though that they are missing lands. So Ragavan is their only way to get mana acceleration, and something that I will keep in mind. My plan is next turn to cast Endurance. I actually thought of playing Cavern of Souls, naming elementals next turn. I fetched for a forest here. I only played 2, and I fetched for a forest to play around Blood Moon. But I do draw Grist. At this point there are 2 ways that I could play my hand. One of them would be to be defensive and actually pass the turn, and when they attack with their Ragavan, me to block with my Endurance, kill the Ragavan, and leave them without mana. Or I could play the Grist. I decided to play the Grist by using a Cavern of Souls and naming Insect, and I can always cast Endurance in the next turn. I do gain life like that, having an Insect, and he does have to play his removal on my Insect, and on more than 1 removal on my Grist. So if the Ragavan attacks the Grist, they won't get the treasure token. And obviously the top of my deck. Here the opponent does something a bit weird. They cast a second Ragavan. Ragavan is legendary, obviously. In order to get 4 different card types in the graveyard and kill my creature, kill my Grist with Unholy Heat. I guess they did that in order to attack me and get another treasure. I don't think that throwing away a Ragavan and an Unholy Heat, though, was the best option for them. And they are left with 2 cards in hand, too. We top deck pretty well. This time I do choose to cast Endurance in order to to shuffle their graveyard back to their deck, because I am afraid that they have a Murktide in hand. They do attack us. Obviously we're gonna block, there is no reason not to block. And another weird play from the opponent. Sorry, opponent. I do believe, though, that this lightning bolt that you exiled should have targeted my Endurance. This way, your Fury didn't have to get used. So they pitch lightning bolt in order to cast Fury to kill our Endurance. It was an interesting choice. I wouldn't have done it like that, though. They lost both the Fury as well as the Lightning Bolt. So we're gonna play our Elvish Mystic as well as our Grist. I start to feel very confident at this point. Another mistake by the opponent. This is why I love Grist. We cast it using Cavern of Souls. It's a creature if it's not on the battlefield, so it cannot get countered. They do try to counter it, so they're left with just 1 card in hand. And starting this point, they have 0 cards in hand. We have Grist. And we can start getting aggressive. There's no point for me to fetch right now. I can fetch at the end of their turn, but I think that I had yielded the turn, so I actually missed this. First draw a card. Try again to draw another card, but we draw only lands. But it's not that bad. We can keep on attacking with Insight tokens and Elvish Archdruid and the Elvish Mystic. That's a good target for our Grist. And that's what we're gonna kill using the minus ability of Grist. The Channeler can turn the game on its own, because it helps them surveil, and they can adjust their top deck as they wish, as I've said in previous videos. And that's when they conceded. So we got a bit lucky. We won game number 2, and we're going now to game number 3. So here we are in game number 3, match 1. We're playing second this time. A weird keep in the previous game worked out. That's why I'm keeping another weird keep this time. I'm only keeping 3 drops and 4 drops. The 4 drop, though, is a Leyline of Vitality that's going to land on round 0, let's say, for turn 0 for me. I have my fetch lands to think the deck and get my basics if needed. And I also have my Archdruid and my Realm Walker, especially Realm Walker, that will help me outgrind the opponent. So this is a keep for me. And again a Ragavan. I'm gonna fetch for a basic here to play my Llanowar Elves, which they're gonna kill. Thankfully, they couldn't cast my real Mocha that they got with Ragavan. I don't do anything. I did think about fetching with the Vetted Catacombs in order to get a Dryad block, but I didn't want to go so far behind in this mana race just to kill the Ragavan at this point, especially when I have no real reason or a threat. He wasn't playing anything important. He does have 4 cards in hand, but nothing worries me at this point. So I'm waiting for my next turn that I can actually cast my Cavern of Souls, and I choose to play the real Mocha because it's gonna be a 2/4, and it would only die to Unholy Heat, or of course a Fury if they wanted to pitch it. So the opponent is gonna cast a Murktide. It's a 6/6. It's biggish, but it doesn't worry us. The good thing is that Real Mocha survived. That was very important because I can make my choices knowing the top of my deck what I'm gonna draw next. For example, I know that a Collected Company is coming, and it's something that I'm waiting for because it's a very good card. And this is why I cast my Archdruid, so that I will be able to have more mana next turn. If it survives, of course. And because I do have Endurance and Devoted Druid in hand, I do know that the only way for the Archdruid to die is a Fury or a Bolt. The only way. 2 ways. Still, we're trying to minimize the chances of the opponent killing our card. We're gonna take the hit. That's another reason we play the ley line. It buys us time. That was a very nice card on the top of the deck. So now we're gonna do, elf things. First we play Kyrian Ranger. Then we crack the card in order to draw the second Endurance. Because if I manage to land both Endurances, they're gonna be 3/5s, and they will be able to kill the Murktide. When you're playing Endurance, always be careful not to shuffle their graveyard back to their library if they have a Murktide on the board. Because Murktide is going to get bigger if they have instants or sorceries. I've done it a couple of times out of habit, and it actually hurt a lot. So this is a little piece of advice that I can give you. So we untap the Archdruid. We use the Kyrian ability to bounce a forest back to our hand. We untap the Archdruid. I do believe that they have a counter, and this is why I'm trying to just bait it out. So the counter goes, meaning that my Heritage Druid will probably resolve. Not unhappy. I'm fetching here in order to fix my top deck again. This is why we play so many fetch lands anyway, for the Real Walker effect, to be able to reshuffle the deck and change the top deck. So right now I will play an Endurance in my turn, to be sure. I'm still trying to bait the removal out of their hands. And I always make sure that I have enough mana to play Collected Company in their turn. Here is the second counter spell. They do have 2 cards in hand. I'm not that worried. I have my blocker, Endurance, and I have been gaining life through the ley line. Murktide has a 3-turn clock as it is, and because we're gaining life every turn, it becomes even less effective. But the game won't go on for long from this point. We try to cast our Izuri, tapping 3 mana with a Heritage Druid. It gets countered again, but we do have another one on top. And now we are landing our Grist. Very nice draws. Ooze and Warmaster, not draws, the cards we got off the company. Ooze and Warmaster. Let's take this out of here. We have tons of mana. We don't have many creatures in the graveyard, but we are fine. And actually, we're not going to give them another turn. We're going to kill them. This is another nice synergy that I like with the deck and Devoted Druid. With the Leyline, Devoted Druid, Azuri, Elvish Archdruid, Devoted Druid can keep on activating more and more. We call it the Devoted Vizier combo deck, but it's not that. It's way more than that, at least in my head. Because of the +1 in the toughness, Devoted Druid becomes an even better tool and synergizes so nicely with the deck. So let's finish them. Mortal Kombat style. That's it for match number 1. So now we're going to match number 2.